hello. I entertain myself. I enjoy my company. Um, 1 second in a moment. Well, maybe you'll just leave it there. Hi, hello, welcome. So, what the? What? Hello? So, at some point, the blank archetype flipped over? Cool. I have the water known archetypes and the Archeo, and I'm not going to build a spread this time. I'm just going to try to do what I was trying to do when I was building the spread. I'm going to try to do this thing that I've been trying to do lately, which is use one deck as a clarifier of the other in terms of like the lover of like what's the jokester, the prankster, the trickster, not the trickster, the jester. Like the jester would be the thing, and then like the ring or something. Like do like a sub archetype of the major archetype. And again, I'm just gonna keep trying it, I guess, until it works. I'm trying to see. I think Jupiter has moved into Taurus. Which, if that is accurate, true factual information, if that indeed has already happened, things will be interesting. Yeah, looks like it. 0 degrees and 4. Oh, wow. It's so close to the North Node, too. And Mercury. Jupiter is slow enough because it's already. I'm looking at the moon in Aries. I'm like, sun in Aries, that's not right. I'm looking at the moon as if it were the sun. And I'm like, so confused. The moon is not the sun. Um. Anyway, what was I saying? Wow, Venus and Mars are only 17 degrees apart. Cute, interesting. Sun is trying. Oh, that's Ceres. I thought it was somebody else. Anyway, when Jupiter conjuncts the North Node, so in my personal astrology, that's all 12th house. My 12th house starts in Pisces and it ends in Taurus. So Jupiter is going to be moving into my. Hold up. Jupiter is going to be moving into my first house. I wonder. No, it'll still be in my 12th house at that point. When is Jupiter going to retrograde? Jupiter stations retrograde in September. So it's going to enter my first house and then retrograde back into my 12th house, but not too far into the 12th anyway. I know this is like, I'm just trying to see for myself when Jupiter is officially going to enter my first house. So, like, late June looks like. Hold up. Let me go to this day. No, okay, so it'll be like right after that. Yeah, so like late June, it'll move into my first house, which is cool. I mean, which is whatever, it'll be whatever. Oh, that's not too long before the new moon Gemini. Well, when is new moon Gemini? It gotta be the 17th of June. Yeah, it looks like the 17th of June, like late on the 17th, Central. It'll be new moon Gemini. Interesting. With Juno right there. Venus and Mars will be 5 degrees apart in Leo. Black Moon Lilith will be like on Venus or on Mars. They'll be like half a degree apart. Anyway, Saturn retrograding Pisces. Pluto retrograding will be in Capricorn at that point. When did Pluto station retrograde? I could do like all of this when I'm not live, but it doesn't matter. Monday, May 1st. Yeah, because like May started. What happened on that day? I feel like it was a lot of like things that were moving on that day. On the second, it was kind of slow. On the third, I think that was my tour, maybe. The fourth was that crazy day. The fifth was the eclipse, full moon. Why was I looking at? Oh, because of what like Pluto is establishing in my personal life. Because I had a feeling that Pluto retrograding from Aquarius into Capricorn as it's going back and forth, it could potentially be an opportunity. It's like when Pluto was in Aquarius, we're like building, we're expanding, we're thinking farther out. And then Pluto will retrograde back into Capricorn. While Pluto is in Capricorn, it'll be an opportunity for us to fix anything in the foundation to like better support what like Pluto was doing in Aquarius. Basically, that was my initial feeling. We'll see how it actually happens. Um, so when will it actually cross the cusp? Because now I'm just so curious. June 11th. Okay. Yeah. See. Okay. So, and that is interesting. Yeah. So then that would be like the right move, right? Talking about my personal life. And that'll be like when Jupiter is like approaching the cusp right before it goes into my first house. So that makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense. So yeah, Pluto is going to move into Capricorn and it's going to support some of the stuff, at least my life. The way the timing lines up, it's going to support some of the stuff that really like Pluto and Aquarius was like, okay, girl. And I'm like, all right, well, let's do it. You know what I mean? So, anyway, for Jupiter in Aquarius. No, for Jupiter in Taurus. Yes. Which reminds me of the Jupiter series that I did half of and did not finish at my buddy's place in Columbus, Indiana. Things are just like moving. At first, I was like, is it moving a little too fast? Well, first it wasn't. And then I was like, is it? And now I'm like, no, it's not. I don't know. It's exciting. That's an exciting time. It's a time I've been waiting for. That's a time, obviously, I needed preparation for more than I would have necessarily thought. But anyway, okay. These archetypes are huge. Should we do a top and the bottom? Oh, look, look, look. It's the jester. That's the dude I was talking about. I'm gonna pull the top and bottom. Bottom is gonna be like what Jupiter in Aries is leaving us. The top is gonna be what Jupiter in Taurus is. See, I usually do three as things transit, like where we're leaving off, slash what we should have, could have potentially gained, what the next theme is gonna be, and then where we're starting. So I think I'm gonna do the same. The top of the deck is going to be Jupiter in Aries. The bottom of the deck is going to be Jupiter in Taurus. And then somewhere in the middle is going to be Jupiter, like the first thing that Jupiter in Taurus is going to potentially be highlighting because I like to read like that, apparently. And I enjoy it, honestly. I should like watch one of these back, see how it fits, how it resonates. I'll give it two more and I'll cut it right there. Jupiter in Aries is the moon cat. We are familiar. Jupiter and Taurus. Ooh, is the dreamer. Look at this almost sloth looking. Jupiter and Taurus is the dreamer. The first thing that Jupiter is bringing us, this one. Oh, another one I haven't necessarily seen. I'm looking for the title. The Sage. Ah, okay, Jupiter. All right. Is this the angel at the bottom of the deck? It is. The angel is at the bottom of the deck. All right, Hillary Duff. This is what dreams are made of. Jupiter in Aries was the moon cat. The moon cat was the one that's all about. This is hilarious. I just had a dream last night about cats and dogs and children and adults. After I had a dream that was like, girl, I am not doing this with you. No, you find somebody else to do this foolishness with. I'm about to wake up. In fact, I'm waking up right now. And I woke up because I did not have time. That's been, if there's one thing I am grateful and appreciative for past Patrick and learning how to do, it's learning how to wake up from a dream that you already know you don't want to have. That's like in dreams, like everything is just so like wild in dreams because sometimes I'll have like a certain omniscience in dreams, um, where it's like either I'll just know everything that's going to happen in the dream, or I'll dream the entire dream, literally dream the entire dream. But then I'll dream it again starting from the beginning, but I'll be in it. Most of the time, it's like I watch the entirety of a movie. And then it's like it starts with the opening scene, and now I'm in the movie. So those are like the two ways that omniscience, either I just know or I'll dream it before I actually dream myself in it. But sometimes it'll be like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this. I already watched this and you want me to go through this? No, I don't think so. I'm waking up. And I wake up. And that's what happened last night. Hey David, how you doing? Last night I was like, yeah, no, I'm not about to do this with you. I'm gonna wake up. And then I had a dream about cats and dogs and children and adults. And that one was kind of wild. Anyway. Anyway. So, oh, because the cat. I'm gonna read it from the book anyway. Mooncat is basically like following your own. It's like marching to the beat of your own drum in a way. It's going about things in a way that is unique to you, in a way that is very much so aligned to something that other people may not necessarily see. So it looks from the outside like marching to the beat of your own drum, but for the moon cat, like there's a logic, there's a rhyme, there's a reason. And that ring came in so, it wasn't loud, it was just so strong that it like literally almost made, like almost gave me a headache. I'm like, well, that's never happened before. Anyway, not getting a headache from my ear ringing. That's Mooncat. That was Jupiter and Aries. Jupiter and Aries is about us walking with the divine rather than walking like with the Hierophant. Jupiter and Taurus is going to be the dreamer, and the crossover, the intersection, the thing that transitions us out of the moon cat and into the dreamer is the sage. And I love that. So for moon cat, I'm going to get these. Am I going to get one or two? That you can fall. At the most, three. Oh, oh, okay. Oh, oh gosh, it didn't fall on the floor. Thank you. I'll leave you face down for now. It's spent. It did a little. Hola, Teresa. How are you doing? What? I actually meant. Hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. Because I did not even catch that synchronicity. I did not even catch that synchronicity. Yeah. I met a Teresa today whose name is spelled exactly like yours. And that's not a super common spelling of Teresa that I see, at least. I'm like 99.99999% sure you are not the same Teresa. Oh, but if you are, that would be wild. If you were, I would quit. I would shut my channel down and go into hiding. And Woo, I can't even like comprehend, girl. I can't even. But I hope that your shift doesn't pass too slowly and too terribly. Oh no, you're fine. I'm pretty bad with the chat anyway, so. The father is coming out with the sage. The father sub archetype of the sage. And I think the sage is one of those masculine archetypes, which is pretty interesting. The father also came out when I did, excuse me, it was the last spread that I built with the archeos and the water known archetypes. It was the father, and was it the lover? I don't remember. But I just saw this father archetype. So for the dreamer, oh no, see, that's way too many. I am gonna note these and I'll give it another shuffle because the bridge is here. There's something I love about the dreamer being preceded by the sage is that like because the dreamer is preceded by the sage, you can be fairly certain that these dreams aren't going to remain just dreams. Jupiter, this is like Jupiter in Taurus. Taurus is the fixed, is the 3D, is the tangible, and is it's sensuality because it's like the things that we can experience with our senses. But with it being again, with it being preceded by the sage, like these are things that like are either we're manifesting or manifesting themselves or are like right. And so the fact that the bridge is here, like the dreamer is moving things from like the thought to reality, or the how the dream can be a bridge from like one way of living and being to another way of living and being. Under that is the shadow, the heart, and the stone. The stone was at the bottom of the deck for the first pile, which was the only one I didn't talk about because I did it for stack 2, 3, and 4. The shadow was actually at the bottom for, I think, stack 3. The bridge, the shadow, the heart, and the stone. The stone and the heart is that like sinking feeling. The shadow, the heart, and this is almost like things that we would never think of as possible. It's almost like when it hurts to dream, and when there's like a happy thought or a happy feeling, but we're in a situation that is so not that it puts a heaviness on the heart. But again, because the bridge is there, it's like it's making the way for something that one would want with all of their heart, but that would never think it might actually like occur or happen. It makes it like a lot more likely to happen. Jupiter in Taurus is going to sextile Saturn in Pisces. Uranus is also in Taurus. So the space is wide open. The North Node is going to be transiting out of Taurus and into Aries. So Jupiter is actually going to conjunct the North Node on its way back into Aries before it retrogrades, but it's not going to retrograde into Aries. It's going to retrograde, I think it was like 15 Taurus back to 5 Taurus. So it's not actually going to like officially cross that cusp again. Um, which means it's going to get like that one conjunction with the North Node, and that's it. All right. Oh, two cards. Fine. The offering and the sword is the dreamer. This is 64 and 62. 63 is missing, which is interesting. I've actually seen both of these cards yesterday. I don't. Ooh, they both came out together, I'm pretty sure. For after I did pile four or stack four, because stack four was the one that had the empty room and the kiss, and it looked like the kiss was eclipsing the light and making the empty room appear empty. And I remember the sword came out because this was like uneclipsing. It was separating the two things. And then it had that same crescent moon under the color of the kiss in the other card. Pretty sure both of these came out after I finished stack four yesterday. Interesting. Which also could have an energy that like is that sinking feeling in the heart, the stone in the heart. Anyway, that one was rough. But the angel is at the bottom of the deck. Bottom of the archetypes is the orphan. The orphan was in pile or in stack four too. Just call it a pile. Why do you have to be so like different? Because everyone calls it pick a pile, select a stack. Am I indigo enough? I'm such a rebel. I'm kidding. Jokes. I love the angel with the orphan though. Because it like there's a even though the orphan may feel alone, like the angel is there. Under the orphan is the crone. You like that little rhyme? The crone was actually it made an appearance at the very beginning, but it never came out yesterday. And the crone is with the alchemist. Oh, the crone and the alchemist as under the angel and the orphan. Love that. And then it's the box and the poet. Um, but I love this because it's like the orphan was never alone. But because the angels occupy like spiritual space instead of like physical space, sometimes they can feel a lot more distant than they may actually be. I think with the angel and the orphan, there's also like one of those like it was done for a reason, it was done for a purpose, it was done because like had the child stayed with the parent, it was almost like a guaranteed not great time. And if the child was orphaned, then at least there would be a chance that they would find a loving family or that they would have a good life, a better life. Um, the thing is, though, it's almost like even if the orphan does get adopted like early, even if they do have a loving family and everything, if they know that they've been orphaned or if they know that they are adopted, there's still going to be that question. Maybe not always. And sometimes it doesn't matter more so than just to like know. But it's the orphan archetype, it's the orphan sub archetype of the angel. If I feel into it as the orphan sub archetype of the angel, it's like basically the same. Um, but it's like it's those times where angels, ancestors, guides are a little more hands off. So again, they feel a lot more distant than they may actually be. But usually it's because it's within an area of free I want to say free reign. It's within an area of free will or choice, and like they can't interfere, or it's in our best interest that they don't interfere so that we grow or reach a maturation point, so that we like the number and amount of things and the magnitude and size of things that we can handle increases, because in non-linear time there's more of the picture that you get to see. And it's like if someone is meant to be the boss someday, they eventually like need to learn how to like they kind of sort of need to learn everything in a way. And so it doesn't serve them to form a dependency on like always going to somebody else. Hey, I got a question about this. I got a question about this. I got a question about this. Because it's like one day you're going to be the boss, and when you're the boss, people are going to be coming asking you the questions. And it's okay if you don't know everything, but it would behoove of you, it would serve you better to get a firm understanding of all of the components of this thing now, so that when you are that boss later, you can be a lot more dependable and reliable, and you're not constantly going to your supervisor. And because you're not constantly going to your supervisor, and because you're managing things so well, you're going to be like slated for another promotion, so it sees even further down the line. But it's like you're a new hire right now essentially, or you're not a boss yet, so it's like, well, I don't have to know, I should be able to go and just get the answer. There's a purpose and reason behind why this angel energy isn't interfering. It's a greater purpose. And so it's like again, it's almost like it can feel like it's neglecting its job, or like whatever that angel energy does for us, like it's not doing it. It's like, well, why are you whatever? So am I going to read this backwards? Yes, I'm going to read this backwards because I'm not going to flip this yet. We believe you face down. So this is the Dreamer. I think this is the first time I'm seeing this card. Definitely my first time reading it. Oh, snap. Hold up. Look at all these crescent moons. I completely missed that. Even though it's in a different sort of phase than the other two. Three crescent moons. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Okay. The Dreamer. Dreamer. The dreamer brings renewed hope, and the dreams he weaves will act as a source of regeneration. He helps you translate your abstract thoughts from image to language and back again. He reminds you that life has alternating phases, and that the sun and the moon take turns in lighting the way. By day, you strive with practical purpose, but at night, you live through the lens of an intuitive kaleidoscope. And I was like looking at the moon, I was like, the sun is not in Aries. And it's like, yeah, because that's the moon. Duh. I don't know if they're interchangeable. I guess when the moon is new, then they're sitting at the exact same point in the astrological sky. When it's like an eclipse, then, a solar eclipse, then in the physical sky, it looks like they are of equal sizes, nearly. That's how the moon eclipses the sun, even though the sun is like so much bigger than the moon. It's a thing about perceived distance or relative distance. Unlike the somnambulist's sleep of the dead, a somnambulist is a sleepwalker. Uh, the dreamer is fully awake and brimming with vitality. Each day he gathers information, and each night he passes on his discoveries to the collective conscience. In return for his efforts, he is fed with fresh insight. His energy is renewed. His rested muscles are rejuvenated, and his tired brain is resharpened. He is imagination, vision, and inspiration. Like Hermes and Thoth, his thirst for knowledge is unquenchable. The dreamer lets loose his flights of fancy, watching as they are watching as they are the heavens far above the satanic mills that imprison his days. He shouts to the heavens, "Bring me my bow of burning gold, bring me my arrows of desire, bring me my spear, O clouds unfold, bring me my chariot of fire." Oh, snap. The chariot of fire, interesting because chariot of fire is obviously Apollo. Apollo? Chariot of fire is obviously Apollo, but there was also Phaeton question mark, who has been doing his time in the underworld apparently and training on pulling a chariot for the time where he rises from the underworld and he is strong enough to pull the chariot of fire so that the sun doesn't get too far or too close. So that's the dreamer. The sword separates things. And the offering, this talked about, in a way, I don't think it necessarily said it, but dreams offering solutions to problems. If there's something that we encounter, like if there's a challenge that we encounter by day, we find the solution by night under the moon. I think it's also interesting because, you know, because it mentioned like giving, like returning information to the collective conscious and like being refreshed by it, right? Each day he gathers information, and each night he passes on his discoveries to the collective conscience. In return for his efforts, he is fed with fresh insight. His energy is renewed, his rested muscles are rejuvenated, and his tired brain is resharpened. But it'll be like that, like, oh my gosh, I was doing so much in dream time last night that I woke up like exhausted. But this one wakes up renewed. Swords cut both ways. And both the sun and the moon is in this sword card. One of these is definitely like as Jupiter is in Taurus, apparently, or one of the things over the course of Jupiter being in Taurus. It's going to be intuitive solutions to real life problems. Again, at some point, Saturn in Pisces is going to be sextiling Jupiter in Taurus. I don't know if dreams are necessarily going to be easier to interpret, though. I don't know if they'll necessarily be like spelled out for us, like in plain English, or if it'll still be that like you got to decode it and decrypt it. Yeah, and the hand is like in darkness reaching out to color. So this is like the problem solving ability of the brain at night, or it's being open to intuitive um, information, again in a way that can solve and remedy real life problems or like waking world things. There's like I feel like there's a huge energy of transition in this dreamer because it's the sword, and the sword is like a separation. At first, the dreamer came out with like the bridge and stuff. The bridge like bridges the gap, but there's like equal opportunity of access to both sides. It's a point of connection. But the sword, again, with that severing energy, it's a disconnect. So it's almost like a tower in that way, but it's like it feels like it's going to be able to more effectively like get us in the position that we want to be in without a fear of like losing it or without going back to the life that we once had. It's like teaching us to fish energy rather than just like giving us fish. The sage is the first thing that Jupiter and Aries is going to be coming out with. And again, sub archetype of the father. Oh my gosh. That's the seal that like bees on the crown, right? Where's the crown? She's literally right here. See that one? And then that one. It's a little different, but they're similar enough. The sage sits quietly by your side, reminding you to stay centered. His wisdom has come down through the ages, and his counsel is balanced and reliable. He has no material agenda, and unlike those priests who cloak themselves in worldly wealth, he requires no supplication, nor does he demand an adherence to a tablet of commandments. He sees no reason to regret or blame. Human kindness needs no stick or carrot. It simply requires us to understand that we are bound together in a single unity. He is Solomon and Siddhartha, imploring us to ground ourselves and listen to our core's steady pulse. He is the soul of intelligence and insight, teaching us to trust our deeper intuitive senses and make right choices based on grounded consciousness. He reminds us that it is okay to pause when faced with a choice. When you do not have enough information to act, that not knowing is a place of poise that shows maturity, not weakness. Wisdom is hard fought for, and the sage did not come to his elevated awareness by accident. His path was long and lonely, and his journey required great discipline, but in time, it gifted him the powers of great compassion and empathy. He needs little and lives in meditative simplicity. I love this. So, the first thing that Jupiter is going to be teaching us, or the first thing that Jupiter is going to be bringing us, maybe teaching us, maybe asking of us, is being able to pause when we don't know. If we can pause when we don't know, and then the dreamer comes in, we get the solution at night. Excuse me. It's very much like sleep on it. Sleep on it and let me know what you think in the morning. I'll sleep on it and let you know how I feel in the morning. I'll be thinking about it. I'll get back to you. There's something, maybe it's the Taurian energy, like Jupiter and Aries, Aries, cardinal fire, go, go, go. Taurian energy. It's slower. It's more, it's almost like, it's like it needs, it's maybe because Taurus is an earth sign, like it needs to make sense for longer than the zero point 0.5 seconds that you're doing it. Aries. Any fire sign, really. It's like on those days that I'm not super excited, is it still going to make sense? On those, like, is it going to be seasonal or is this something that I can do all year? Right? Because, I remember being on real estate YouTube and seeing houses in like Las Vegas in the desert with fireplaces. And it's like, is it gorgeous? Yes. Is it scenic? Does it build ambiance and atmosphere? Of course. Are you ever going to use it in the desert? Probably not. But you best believe they're going to charge you for it, right? Like the first thing that Jupiter is teaching us, is giving us, is it's coming through as patience so that we can receive the answer. Like the sage is such a perfect in between because, again, it teaches us with that line, when you do not have enough information to act, that not knowing is a place of poise that shows maturity, not weakness. He reminds us that it is okay to pause when faced with a choice. And then again, in the dreamer, I'm just read it because the book said it better than I can. He helps you translate your abstract thoughts from image to language and back again. He reminds you that life has alternating phases and that the sun and the moon take turns in lighting the way. By day, you strive with practical purpose, but at night, you live through the lens of an intuitive kaleidoscope. I'm sorry, somebody's playing this song. It's like, what was that? Where was it? Each day he gathers information. Each night he passes on his discoveries. No, it was more so, by day you strive with practical purpose, but at night you live through the lens of an intuitive kaleidoscope. Yeah, because it didn't necessarily like clearly say like you receive insights on problems that you face throughout the day in sleep or at night, but that energy is here. Again, there's such a big like tower energy, world card energy here with the sword because the sword cuts and cleaves, but also at the same time is coming with the offering. We have the angel and the orphan at the bottom of the deck. So in this period of time, potentially, there's going to be a lot of like solutions to 3D, physical, real life, everyday, real world problems in our like lives. And there's going to be solutions or intuitive insights offered to us, but nothing necessarily going to be done for us because of the angel with the orphan. The angel can inform us, the angel can guide us, but at the end of the day, we need to make the decision. And maybe there was a certain point in time where the divine moved with more like it almost like did stuff for us. Maybe opportunities came like right here. Like, hey, oh my gosh, I would love to have you do this. Do you want to do that? Maybe you'll have to seek it a little bit. But again, like you'll be intuitively led and guided exactly where you need to go. And again, I love that this is in between because the first part of the sage, what did it say? What did it say? What did it say? His wisdom has come through the ages and his counsel is balanced and reliable. He has, okay, not that part. Did it not like say it plainly? I thought it did. Yeah, yeah, it's this one. He is Solomon and Siddhartha, imploring us to ground ourselves and listen to our core's steady pulse. He is the soul of intelligence and insight, teaching us to trust our deeper intuitive senses and make right choices based on grounded consciousness. That part, deeper intuitive senses and stuff, that's Mooncat. That's what Jupiter is gifting us with, or that's what Jupiter gifted us with while it was in Aries. This is so like cohesive. Oh my gosh. The moon cat's driven by curiosity and intuition. If you align yourself to her, you will learn to grow your innate perception. Invite her into your company, and if the mood takes her, she will show you alternate byways. Follow her padded footsteps and mimic her dancing amber eyes to understand what it is to be free. Her ways are enigmatic and unpredictable, yet far from irrational. Lithe and low, the cat slips soft footedly down the old moon's ribbon pale path. Her pupils expand, widening as the landscape's luminosity grows under a rising gold crescent. A rising gold crescent from the offering. Okay. Because that's like a full moon. That ain't crescent. But anyway, sorry. Her cousin Phoebe has gifted the cat the freedom to wander wild from dusk to dawn among the rocks and ghosts. Those who walk in moonlight are unrestricted by convention. They do not suffer obligation and are not constricted by any notion of a contrived formality. Instead, they choose their empire of shadows, where no cold hearted human god demands servitude. The moon cat patrols all corners of the earth, from the abandoned labyrinths of Lima to the gates of Eden, and from the palace at Versailles to the catacombs of Alexandria. Revered by the ancients for their independence, their names are inscribed in the libraries of man. From the sharp-witted Pangurban or Pangurban to the mercurial Menelouche, cats have listened to a different drum, a drum beat that humans can hear only at a great distance. That last part is interesting. A drum beat that humans can hear only at a great distance. There was a Doppler energy that came through recently. I don't remember where. But the Doppler effect is like the closer something gets to you, the louder it sounds, and the further away it gets, the quieter it is. So, like a siren that's passing by. And it's like because the time that it takes for the sound to travel from its source to your ear gets shorter and shorter and shorter as it's getting closer, it sounds louder. But this is almost like it's almost like the opposite. Cats have listened to a drum beat that humans can only hear at a great distance. So, like, you got to be really far away from it to hear it. If you get too close, it's quiet. And it feels like that gets us to keep a certain distance or to find this sweet spot, probably between like having everything more or less done for us, where we don't have to actually be too. The card that's face down is the self. Oh my gosh, this came out for number 4 yesterday. All the cards from, and I shuffled this. Like the self, but again, the self in the moon cat is perfect. The moon cat is the one that doesn't listen to the guru, the sage, the hierophant, the whoever. The moon cat doesn't listen to anybody but its own intuition. The moon cat has like that direct connection, that direct conversation. Again, like this is so cohesive. Honestly, it feels like Jupiter in Aries is building our trust. It's doing a few things. It's building our trust in the divine, building our trust in our intuition and our discernment so that we actually like act upon the things. But it's actually like helping us strengthen our land legs or sea legs since we're talking about intuition so heavily. Like intuition is everywhere from the moon cat to the sage to the dreamer. Jupiter apparently is all about intuition right now, which is again, especially with the dreamer, Jupiter and Taurus, it doesn't necessarily feel like things are being done, but they are being offered. That's also, I guess, like the sextile. Sextile is an opportunity, it's an offering. It requires us to do, say, speak, or be something. It doesn't just happen like with a trine or like with an opposition, honestly. An opposition is like just like a no, a hard no, or feeling like you're constantly like bumping into walls. And so when you go down a path and there is no wall, well, at that point, it's the only path for you to go down. With a square and with a sextile, you kind of sort of got to look. You kind of sort of got to go a certain number. You got to go a certain ways before it sort of like works out either way. Anyway, where was I getting with that? I was going somewhere with that. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Jupiter is doing two things, or it did two things when it was in Aries. It can still be doing it, of course, because getting us to trust our intuition and getting us to actually do stuff in our lives, getting us to take the leap, take the plunge, to make that move, to move our piece on the board, to knock down our domino so that it can subsequently align everything else. Again, that's why the angel is with the orphan at the bottom of the deck. It's these things that, because of who we are, because of the space that we're in, or because of what we're asking for in life, there are things that we need to learn to do for ourselves that angel energy can't just do for us, even though it would love to, right? And it knows how it makes us feel. The angel isn't orphaned unless you orphan your angels, which you can do, girl, I guess. Uh, but it's like the divine understands how we feel when we feel that it's pulled away in that way. But there's something not necessarily explicitly stated, but it's all about perception. If we perceive it that way, then yeah, of course, that's what it's going to feel like. But as we're learning, as we're growing from baby to toddler to teenager to adult, from young adult to adult to elderly adult, and then but you can still learn. There are those different moments and points in time where we have to step up, where it's not done for us. And it doesn't mean that we're not loved. It doesn't mean we're not cared for. It's just, it's time for us to mature or to grow in a way, to be a little bit more self sufficient. Because with that self sufficiency, it's like with great power comes great responsibility. With an increase in responsibility comes an increased allowance of power. Sure, we'll say that. Why not? So the moon cat creates this relationship and dynamic with self that is beautiful. That's what Jupiter left us with in Aries. Like, we know how to do that. Now, it's almost like Jupiter and Taurus has the potential to test our strength, faith, and resolve, and to test whether or not we'll actually do the things with the sage and the father. But it's almost like at this point, again, Jupiterian energy is like, well, you already know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, it's like, because you know what to do, if you don't know what to do in a certain situation, that means something. Don't be afraid to take your time. Don't be afraid to think through it. Like, there's such a huge, I was going to say obvious, energy of a test, but it's not a test. It's like, again, like it is, but it isn't. Like, I feel like it would be so easy for us to perceive it that way. But it's honestly just like, well, you already know what to do. And at this point, you're old enough, you're grown enough, you're mature enough, you're going to do what you want to do, regardless of what I do or don't say. If this is something that you want, it's like when, like, you're a child and you're talking to your guardian, your parent, and you're like, I want a pet. And they're like, okay, like, if you want a pet, you're going to have to take care of it. You're going to have to feed it. You're going to have to water it. You're going to have to take it outside. You're going to have to clean up after it. Do you want this pet? And maybe you start with a different thing to expose you to responsibility that you hadn't had before. And then after that trial period, after that tester, it's like, okay, do you still want, like, do you want even more responsibility? Or do you want to do this full time when you get this pet? And either it's like yes or it's like no. And then let's say you get the pet and you're loving it, but one day you have a long day, or one day you're tired or whatever, and the pet needs something. And you're like, hey, parent, like, or maybe your pet is just like making a noise, or your pet is like, I need something. And your parent is noticing that it needs something, and your parents also, your guardian's also noticing that you're not taking care of it. And they're like, hey, buddy, The dog needs to go out. The cat's hungry. The fish's tank is full of poop. When you're gonna clean it? And you're like, but I'm tired. But I want to do this. And it's like, you said you like wanted this responsibility, right? Can they help? Sure. Should they help? Probably. If you're like a legitimate child, you know. But it also depends on the thing. There are certain, especially, it depends on what you're asking for. There are certain things that you can't necessarily not feel like being responsible for a week, a month, 2 months, a year, multiple years, and expect for that thing to still be like healthy and viable, right? Like if you have something organic that needs to eat every day, you can't go months at a time without feeding it, right? Unless it's like a cactus or something, girl. It's just like it's not conducive. It's not healthy for the thing. Um, but that's the father aspect of the sage. But it feels like it's more like trusting yourself. It was just 55-55 on the runtime. Um, anyway, I washed all the kinks and curls out of my hair. It's time to get it retwisted too. It grows so fast sometimes. Like all of that. I just got it done. Anyway. And then the dreamer comes. This is shiny. I just looked down at the card and it looked like it had a, you know how like sun rays will be like how you draw a sun is like shining, but it was like moon. It was like these sun rays around the moon? Question mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was trying to see if there were like 8 arrows. Like there's this 8 of Wands energy. This is feeling like super flume though. The super flume was the energy that was like up here. That like if we can stretch a little bit, we'll like start to feel it. But it's like the arrows get progressively lower and lower and lower. Jupiter and Taurus is really going to be bringing some of those big ideas down. And like, I'm pretty sure that's going to touch. It may just be barely. Like, it may be, what do you call it? It's like when you have a circle and you have a line that touches the circle at exactly one point. It's almost like that. But because of that, it's like, again, going back to the energy that came out whenever it came out of like, whenever humanity progresses to a certain point, there are certain, speaking of the collective conscience, there are certain things that float the collective conscience, certain inventions, certain progressions, certain ways of doing things, or whatever. And there are multiple people who will sort of like receive that idea at the same time, all over the place, no contact with each other, but you'll see in roughly the same, in a relatively short period of time, multiple people having breakthroughs in the same area. And it's because that idea is like floating the collective conscience. It's because it's almost reading like, if you can cash in on it, girl, you'll be set for life. It's being offered, though. It's not like, it doesn't feel strong at all. And it's the dream. So it feels like it retains its subtlety, which may be another reason why Jupiter in Aries is leaving us with a trust and faith in ourselves, in the divine, and in our connection with the divine. And then Jupiter in Taurus is opening up, honestly, with discipline, with teaching us discipline, but in a, like a loving, encouraging way. Like it's okay to not know. You can take all the time that you need to decide. Again, if the dreamer card didn't come out, I wouldn't have necessarily, and just because Patrick wouldn't doesn't mean that you wouldn't have. I wouldn't have necessarily seen that as like, oh, the sage is teaching us to wait because, and or because things will be revealed in the future. Because we're moving into an energy of like revelation. The sword and the offering Like we could literally be offered clarity, like the Ace of Swords. We could be being offered clarity in situations and matters again that we may struggle in the waking world in our day to day through dream. Literally right there. But again, it's being offered. We don't necessarily have to take it. We don't necessarily have to trust it. We don't necessarily have to believe in it. But how many people do you know who like there'll be a super popular idea or something that comes out and they're like, man, I had that idea like 10 years ago. Look how wildly successful it is. It's like, yeah, but you didn't do anything with it. So it you returned it to the hello, hello. Glad to hear that you made it back home all right. This is interesting. Because again, like I wouldn't have necessarily thought that it's because solutions and clarity will be offered. But again, it feels like maybe not. Because it's very, very, very possible as a human or as a anything to learn something at one point and discover an application later. It's very, very possible to gain knowledge at one point and then for it to mature into wisdom over time. And maybe that's what the alchemist and the crone is. This sort of symbolizing that point where knowledge and information matures into wisdom. And because of the alchemist, the crone came out like that last time. It was the crone and Kairos, and it was like this time magician, time magic, time witch energy. But it wasn't anything that she was necessarily doing. It was her knowing, like, time flies when you're having fun and it drags when you're not. So if I carry an energy of like, I'm having a blast, time's going to go faster in some points. And if I want things to slow down, I like drag it out. But that extrapolated, it's like how internal circumstance affects our perception of an environmental truth or an environmental phenomenon. I like phenomenon. Time passes at the same like rate that it always passes. It's just our perception of it that speeds up and slows down. It's a very like natural sort of alchemist. And again, it's very, very, very this. Because between the moon cat and the sage and the dreamer, honestly, none of this is hierophant, none of this is guru, none of this is like pastor preacher, none of this is something written in a book. All of this is like if you are actively engaged in life, if you are open and if you are paying attention and seeing all of the things that are being brought to you to see, if you are claiming all of the clarity that's being offered to you, there are truths of life that you will learn. There are truths of energetic whatever that you will learn that you don't need a book or somebody else who already knows it for. You will naturally pick it up. And it's almost like the one sort of beneficial thing about taking the natural path is that you'll more or less know how you work with it because you're living your life as you're learning it rather than like going through modality after modality after modality and getting varying ranging like results from like one modality versus another. It's almost like the natural way you'll like naturally gravitate towards what is most energetically aligned for you. So that's Jupiter, I guess. Cool, interesting. Again, not necessarily what I would have expected. And again, there may be things that Jupiter taught us in Aries that we know, but we won't necessarily like know that we know until like now that Jupiter is moving into Taurus. Again, it feels like the first thing that Jupiter is going to be showing us in Taurus is like the applications of everything that we learned when it was in Aries, or everything that we could have learned when it was in Aries. Cool. I'm going to get final cards. I'm going to read the three tales too, and I'll read them in frontwards order. So let me find all of them so that when I start reading, I'm just going to read it from one to the other. The Dreamer, the Mooncat. I was like, I know it starts with an M. And the Sage. Okay, you ready? Sauntering down the promenade, the cat came to the deserted lighthouse. He'd been trying to get into the tower for days, and this evening he finally discovered a broken window. Mounting the corkscrew steps to the lantern room, he leapt onto the empty dais to survey the horizon. Night arrived, and he was still there, his mossy eyes grown large from staring into the inky blackness. Far out on the moonless sea, a small boat bobbed, its oarsmen desperately trying to make out the shoreline, and then he saw them, two blinking pinpoints of green light beckoning him to safety. With eyes fixed on the starry buckle of Orion's belt, the Sandman completed his pre-dawn run through the black sand dunes. Cupping his ear to the crashing waves, he listened beyond the gulls calling for the sound of the sirens. Walking back to his cabin, he considered how best to carry out his instructions. It wasn't for him to question the nature of their wisdom. Once inside his shack of shell and driftwood, he jammed shut the door and climbed the 5-rung ladder into his red and green parrot box, where he curled up and dreamed you and I into life. A boastful young monkey loudly declared that he could out-argue anyone. An old man took him to a tall tree and began to climb, saying over his shoulder, "Follow me." The monkey reluctantly followed, asking, "What do you want to debate?" The old man climbed higher. The monkey shouted, "That's far enough. Tell me, what shall we dispute?" But the old sage kept going, and eventually the monkey's nerve broke and he clambered back down. The sage continued until his head emerged above the leaves. He looked about at the beauty of the snow-topped mountains. "What argument, indeed," he murmured. Ooh, I love how it, like, we were talking about, like, lighthouses and the water and the shoreline, and how it ended with the eyes, and then it opened with the eyes, and it was on the beach and the shoreline, and how he went to sleep and how he dreamed about this monkey that was climbing his tree. Anyway. Pretty in June. So 55. Oh, snap. That's the new number for you. All right. Final archetype. Oh, let's get a shuffle. That's my mother. I had dreams like years ago that I'm just now seeing like play out in a certain way. Or I guess the realization of it, just like within the past few weeks, has hit me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what? Who knew? Anyway, dreams have been interesting. All right, final archetype, Archeo. Who is it? I'm gonna try to give it one of these. You know, the thing where you like pull the cards so they pop out. Actually, no, because I don't want to. These are huge. Two at the most, please. No more than two, please. And I'm just gonna keep going until I'm done. Okay. Oh, I got two. Oh. I was thinking of the jester earlier. I said the trickster. Didn't mean the trickster. I meant the jester, and the jester was at the cut, right? Well, now we get the trickster and the blank one. The blank one that I was like, oh, why is there a card back? At some point, the blank one flipped over. Well, now the blank one came out. This honestly, this feels like no answers given. It feels like silence, but it's in a way of like where we ask a question. It's like, have you ever asked someone something that you know that they won't tell you? And so you try to read their silence and you try to read their expressions like, is that a yes or is that a no? And it's like, oh, like it's this, isn't it? And they don't say anything. You're like, oh, it's this, it's this, it's this. And something about the way that they whatever has you convinced that you're right, but you're actually wrong. And then you're like, you told me it was this and it wasn't. And they're like, I never said anything. You assumed that that was being done. But if you recall, I never said a word. It's not necessarily this, it's just like we're going into something with a certain perception and it doesn't necessarily feel like right now it's being corrected. We're not being told if we're right, we're not being told if we're wrong. So if we're tricked or deceived, it's like, well, we're doing it to ourselves. If things don't necessarily play out the way that we think or the way that we intend, if things seem one thing but it's actually something else, it's our perception. Bottom of the deck is the dreamer. Maybe it's not said in the daylight, but it's said subtly. See, but that I feel like that's even more dangerous. Because if it's something that we intuitively pick up, I think sometimes as people it can be difficult, especially in certain arenas rather than others, for us to separate our intuition and discernment from like our fear, from our paranoia, from our pain, from our traumas, from our past. It can be easy sometimes for us to be like guided to a certain thing and then things happen in a way that we've seen similarly and we're like my intuition is telling me that this isn't the thing for me, that this ain't right, but that's like more like my trauma or what I recognize as patterns from the past are indicating to me because of X, Y, and Z that this isn't it. But within this case specifically, and for in which ones that like it will resonate, we were intuitively led and guided here. It goes back to the moon cat, where we can only hear the drum beat from a great distance. But the closer we get to it, the quieter it gets. Maybe it's because there are other things that speak louder. Maybe it's our fear of being hurt, disappointed, or let down again. Maybe it's our desperation at which we crave something new, desirable, joyous, or whatever. We stop listening and we start desiring and demanding. And in that space, whatever we hear or see or witness, it's almost like it's on us. But again, with the dreamer there, it's like that intuitive voice, the divine, everything, it's still there. I think Jupiter being the sage, like everything that Jupiter left us from Aries as we're moving into Taurus, it'll be really helpful and really beneficial at like actively discerning and intuiting as we get closer and closer and closer to the things that we desire. Because sometimes we want something to be something so badly that we rose tinted glasses don't even see the things that are clearly like, yeah, no. Or again, sometimes we're so afraid of being hurt or disappointed or let down that we read further into situations than we should. And it's like, we're like, no, even though it was a yes. It's entirely, it's just like, it is what it is. It's truly one of those, like, the situation itself is neutral. Ouch. It was our perception of it that caused us to see things however we saw it. Again, all of that self stuff that Jupiter and Aries came out with, it'll be invaluable. that like, is this me like projecting or is this like actually happening? You know? But I think too, it won't get us to like to sabotage things that don't need to be. Again, like because we don't want to be disappointed or let down or whatever. Have I really? Well, that's me, your synchronicity machine. Every now and then. Until I'm not. And then at that point, it's okay. Or maybe I will always be. Yeah, I had that. I don't even. I have to. I sent Rob a voice note. I sent Rob a voice note at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Because I don't know. Somehow I just started talking to Rob about my dreams. Not that that's weird at all. Because I mean, it's Rob. It's almost quite literally what he does. You know what I mean? It's almost quite literally his specialty. Um, but last night I was like, I'm gonna be half asleep, but I was like, I just saw this thing in a dream, and I was like, no, I am not dealing with this. And then I went back to sleep, and I dreamt about cats and dogs and toddlers and adults. So anyway, oh, the self just almost spat out a whole bunch of cards. Oh, gosh. 3 archetypes at the most, please. 3 at the most. There we go. All right, well then, what say you to end this? I should do 4 Kims again. The womb. I just saw that blood, like blood is thicker than water, is like a misnomer because the full saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the womb of the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. But with the abbreviated saying, we literally say the opposite. Well, blood is thicker than water. It's like, yeah, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Not the other way around. But anyway. Is that the trickster in the blank card? I don't know. Oh, girl, she popped over earlier. She was in reverse. Maybe I'll take her in reverse. You're not that innocent. The maiden. The maiden flipped over in reverse. She came out yesterday. I saw her when I was shuffling the cards before I came live. Maybe it is an age of maturity. Because when the maiden came out, it was for pile 2, I'm pretty sure. Stack 2, I'm pretty sure. And the mother was there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was for the second one. And it was like, well, the body is ready. It's producing eggs. 4 cards came out face down. The Unseen, Alethea, the Flame, and the Creator. Alethea is truth. The Unseen, truth, and the Flame of the Creator. With the Maiden, this is too many cards. It's not going to be the final card. The bottom of the deck is Gnosis. Oh, girl. Something's about to start. Something's about to. Maybe that's the people. I had a dream about first it was cats and then it was dogs. So it was cats and dogs, and then there was like toddlers. So it was cats and dogs and babies, and then there were adults. And when the adults came, it was like, whoa. But it was like cats, dogs, and humans. But for some reason, like toddlers didn't read as humans. Maybe because they were like baby humans. But when the adults came, that's when things got real. That's another card that came out yesterday. The Vessel. Oh, bottom of the deck is the Self. The vessel. Maybe this is just like not so subtly the divine being like, you're ready. You are mentally, emotionally, and like people, it's more like you're physically capable, your body is physically capable of carrying a child right now. Some people have bodies that like can physically like carry children, but they can't because something in their anatomy or their physiology, like the hips aren't wide enough or the bones are too close or whatever, complications can arise just because the egg is ready to take a sperm. Just because an egg is ready to be fertilized does not necessarily mean that the mother is physically capable of carrying in a traditional standard way. But anyway, because of the maiden coming out with the flame of the creator and the unseen truth. It's like we may not necessarily think that we're ready. We may not necessarily always feel that we're ready. Mentally, emotionally, physically, more important than anything, energetically, spiritually, we're ready. The vessel is ready. It's like the vessel is ready to receive the thing to begin building a vessel within the vessel. This also makes me think of, it was right off the tip of my brain before I said that, the Ten of Swords, the Destroyer, and the SKT, the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, specifically in the Vitruvian edition. And it was the two drums, it was the light and the dark. The vessel was being cleaned and purged and prepared, excuse me, to receive more of the divine. That's this energy. Bottom of the deck is the self again. So, yeah, maybe the vessel is ready to receive more of the self. Or maybe there are things that we are destined for, if destiny is a such thing. And it's, I'd say that because, like, there again, so much of this is like choice, and so much of this is like maturation and stuff like that. But yeah, we're ready. The vessel is clean and we are capable of receiving that in the way. That's what Jupiter is like. Jupiter in Aries, at least until the culmination, the completion of Jupiter in Aries, was us being in a space, in a stage to, within our own ability and capability, move things forward, to be cardinal fire. And Jupiter is one of those planets where we go like, oh, Jupiter is making a transit, everything's just going to fall from the sky for us. Certain things will, but the things that fall from the sky now, we're going to actively pursue. We're going to be active participants in. So opportunity can fall from the sky, but if you don't show up to work, if you if you don't clock in, you're going to get fired. If you don't perform, you're going to get fired. If you don't do the thing that is for you to do, you guessed it, you're going to get fired. But it's something that we're capable of performing. We're capable of doing it now, which is the reason why angel energy orphaned us a little bit. It's why the divine may have again, it's like it's in how we felt the divine retreating or moving back, but it didn't. Like the divine is still there. It's like the maiden is ready to be a mother. Ready or not. Here it comes. Surprise, you're pregnant. Woo! Imagine like going to a surprise party. Or it's like, imagine going somewhere and then you find out like it's your baby shower and you don't even know that you're pregnant. And you're like, wait, what? Crazy, right? Anyway, it's interesting. I guess I'm not too surprised. Um, but again, there's just like a cohesion between the Mooncat, the Sage, and the Dreamer, even read backwards. I guess I read them backwards, but I saw like what all the cards were. I pulled them in the right order. I read the entries and their sub archetypes backwards, but then I read the tails in the correct order moving forward. Anyway, there was something else too about the Mooncat. You would think that from a distance, salesman, the salesman, yeah, because he's sailing a boat. The boat guy. I'm like, not the salesman. Um, uh, you would think from a distance he wouldn't see a cat's eyes at the top of a lighthouse when he was expecting a brilliant display. I think that's also indicative of the energy too. It's like it's the little thing. There's a sensitivity that Jupiter has also helped to hone and define in the self that isn't necessarily very loud. Because again, Jupiter and Taurus is like it's just an offering. Like you could do this, like no, but like I'm not worth it. I'm not worthy because of this or because of that or whatever. Anyway, I gotta go. Thank you all for being here. I hope you have an excellent whatever whenever you see this, and I hope you're acting on it to make all that you wish to experience your reality.